Yo, welcome back to another episode of Introspective Thoughts with your boy Martian, aka the great and powerful Martian, aka the nig that keeps on nigging, aka the bitch that makes the biscuits, aka Deku's evil twin, aka Miss Frizzle's loud pack, aka DJ Run That Back, aka the part-time homosexual, aka Gay Wrongs, aka your child's favorite teacher, aka a bad bitch and that nigga, aka God's playable character because I am not an NPC, aka a child not left behind, aka the realest nigga that I know, aka nobody's cup of tea, aka a seat at the table, aka the chic of all trades. And I'm here with a guest. You can't see her face right now. But she is like, what in the almighty hell just happened here? Welcome to the first time, and definitely not the last time, because we definitely gonna have more to talk about later. But welcome to
Absolutely.
the platform, Dr. Breigh Jones-Coplin.
Yes.
Take
I
a
ain't doing,
moment.
I ain't doing no AKA because I can't even follow that up. So we just gonna stay with the name and that's it.
Well, I'm gonna give her AKA as AKA Dr. That Girl, because that's what
Okay.
she is, AKA Black and Blossom, because that's what she also does as well. But I'm gonna let her talk her cash money, because that's what we do best right here. Take a moment, introduce yourself to the people, if you will.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't even know. I got a lot of moving parts, AKA be doing too damn much. Okay.
You
Uh
know, it'd be like that, you know.
AKA multifaceted queen. But yeah, so a lot of moving parts. I think the biggest thing we're going to talk about today is author, right? Author of Soul to Self. I'm a professor. I'm a psychologist. I'm in the sports psych world. Professor at University of Denver. I am residing in Denver right now. Also, owner and founder of Black and Blossom Floral Design Company in Denver. Just transitioned from brick and mortar to be continued where that journey is going. I'm a wife, I'm a dog mom, I am, so many things, an educator, a consultant, and very spiritual. So I know it's hard
Yeah.
to put labels on all the life that we live, but that's a start.
And it's completely fine because we're one of those people. When I say we, I mean you and I are one of those people where sitting down is foreign to us. Like, what is that? Like, what does that mean, right? We got our hands in so many different fires, so many different pots, so many different things. But what I love about you in particular is that how easeful it seems to the outside world and how graceful it is that you carry yourself while doing those things, because
Um,
it takes a very special person to make the things happen, and everybody ain't got it. It's either in you or it's on you, and it's in you.
hey, thank
So we're gonna spend just a little bit of time today. We're gonna switch it up, do it just a little bit different. I know we've had a couple of people on, and we've talked about a lot of shenanigans, and we will shenanigan at some point in time, but not on this episode, right? Today we're coming to talk about something that is very near and dear to both myself and Dr. Jones Copeland's heart, which is soil to self. Yeah.
we did
So
this.
if y'all are not aware, which some of y'all should very much so be, because you follow me on the socials, and if you don't, that's an issue in of itself that you need to go
Right.
ahead and fix, but we'll get to that drag later. But we wrote a book called Soul to Self, a guided journal for nurturing growth, empowerment, and the journey back to self. I think when did this came? It came out at the time of this
April.
recording in April. But this is something that we have been working on since 2021, 22, somewhere in that
Something
ballpark
like that.
range.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark range, right? So this is literally 2, 3 years in the making, and I'm happy that I finally have a tangible copy of this thing. Not
Yeah.
because I've been waiting forever, but it's one of them things like to watch it go from just a thought to now it has manifested into something real and tangible. I'm still like,
Yeah.
I
Sure.
don't, I'm like, this is a thing. This is real. Like,
Mhm.
what? So I want to start off with this conversation as a whole of what was the why behind doing this? Of course, I know because I was part of the process, but for those who weren't in the room or weren't flies in the room hovering around listening to conversations and things like that, why A, was it necessary for this to be created? But B, why is it also necessary for the time in which we're in right now?
Yeah. Loaded question. So the journey, Soul to Self was kind of put on my heart in 2022. So um I was going through my own kind of journey of trying to figure out things professionally, finishing up my residency for my doctorate, went to a conference. Talia Boone of Postal Petals was talking about intersecting mental health and flowers. At that point, I was, fully engaged in my floral work. And I'm being trained as a psychologist, right? So obviously that connection kind of like put my antennas up of like, oh, this is a world I can tap into. Had a couple meetings with Talia. She asked me if I ever considered coming up with some type of curriculum around this that we can like put in schools and prisons and, really immerse our community in stuff that we know, right? Like working with flowers, working with our hands, we know it's healing. It's somatic healing practices that are indigenous to this land, it's indigenous to our ancestry as African people. And so I started like really connecting the dots. And as I started leaning into this work and conceptualizing what it could look like, it was just, spiritual guidance of like, oh, yes, like this work is so needed in a lot of different ways. Um, One, just being a psychologist, I talk about how mental health feels very inaccessible. It feels very gatekeepy. It feels very like there's a lot of red tape around who has access to, things that like it's like as psychologists, we have the knowledge to make the world well and healthy. But you have to like go through all this red tape to even get to that point to have that knowledge and have access to that. So that was one aspect of it. The second aspect of it was just being able to speak the language, right? Like not have things that feel so jargony and intellectually just like advanced, but it's like we all have some type of experience with flowers and gardening. And how can we use that as a shared language to talk about health and wellness? And so like I think Soil to Self is such a beautiful manifestation too. Charles, like it's been a journey of like starting and stopping, taking a chance on yourself, not taking a chance, I put a lot of things before this project, which is why it's been so many years in the making. And so I think you feel that in this work, like you feel that it's an investment, that it's not something that was impulsively created. It was like had the thought, sat on it for a little while, forgot about it. God is like, no, don't forget about this thing because it's needed in this world. So it's a manifestation of me being divinely guided, my community seeing something in me that they're like, you should do this, you should tap into this. And then, the last part of it is just intersecting a lot of different worlds and connecting different disciplines that I feel like don't talk enough, right? We talk about holistic healing practices. We're talking about psychology. We're talking about sociology. We're talking about environmentalism. We're talking about communal aspects of, healing. So all of that is kind of like conjured into this book. And I think it's so needed right now. Like we've done a pilot study on this of just like really assessing the impact of this from a community-based healing practice. And y'all, the proof is in the pudding. Like people have come out of this group changed, internally transformed, super connected to themselves, but also to each other. And in a time where, social media is like so prominent, I feel like we're more distant and disconnected from each other than ever, and disconnected from ourselves than ever, right? So Soul to Self is really kind of like not forcing, but encouraging us to get back to some of those practices that we know make us well, right? Like that introspection and reflection and vulnerability and being able to go back to your roots and really understand who you are and how that's informing who you are today and how that's going to inform your future goals and how that informs your community building. Like it's so many aspects to this book that I feel like encompass what we all need right now, which is just like slowing down, a reminder of who we are, and then getting back to some of the things that our ancestors did very, very well that we've lost in the world of capitalism and, digital social media kind of taking over how we build relationships too. I know that was a lot, but
No, that's fine. And I appreciate that. because that answer in itself kind of reflects like the next portion of what I want to say, as far as like you can tell the intentionality behind this, right?
Yes.
Because for those who haven't gotten a copy yet, when you do get your copy, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. What I'm about to say is that every single activity put in this book, every single piece of reading, every single reflection piece, every single inch, aspect, punctuation, paragraph, everything of this book was done with the intention behind literally everything that was just said here, right? And it's
Mhm.
not one of those like you can just sit here and be like, oh, I'm just gonna go through this real quick. This is just one of your standard run of the
No.
mill type situations. No, girl, you actually are going to have to sit with what is being said or what is being pulled out of you in this moment, right? And I love that all of those things kind of coalesce. The biggest thing that I took from what you just said is like it's one of those things where God put this on your spirit to do right now. Like we can't get
Hmm.
from this. And what I love is that y'all will figure this out about me, or if you've looked through my YouTube channel, looked through my social media, you know what I mean when I say this is that I strongly believe I don't believe in coincidence. I believe in divine timing and alignment, right?
Absolutely.
And as we talked about on the previous episode about how the planet Uranus moving into Gemini and like the different connections that it's had to sociological issues or that it's had to a lot of global issues, right?
Mhm.
Um, that same astrological impulse has an impact on you personally, right? And I
Absolutely.
strongly believe, I'm about to get a little bit preachy real quick. I strongly believe that all things work together for your good, regardless of what it looks like or how it turns out, right?
Hmm.
And to, like I said, see the intentionality behind this book or behind like this work in juxtaposition to everything that's going on around us right now. It's like, if not now, then when, right?
Right.
But also, if not us, then who, right?
Hmm.
Because to your point of what you said, as far as like these practices that are, genetic to us, that are cultural to us, that are not even just specific to us, but it's the things that got our ancestors over and got them through and got them
Heavy
past.
handed.
I mean, slavery, Jim Crow, mass incarceration. I just picked up medical apartheid again. I don't know why I'm doing it to myself,
Yeah,
but
don't do that.
it's in my spirit to go ahead and read it. So here we are, right? But to just think about all the stuff that our ancestors went through. Not even, and we're not even talking about like 100 years ago. I'm talking a generation ago,
Hmm.
right? We've lost recipes, as people say, right? And I think this is one of those things that gets us, even if we don't have the full recipe, at least we got a starting spot. We
Yeah.
got the basics in the house. We got I may not have the condiments and the herbs and all the correct spices, but at least I got a baseline of where to
Right.
start, right?
You got the protein.
I got the protein, right? I got a
You gonna be
protein.
fed.
I got a protein. I got a vegetable, and I got salt and pepper. I can at least make something happen out
Yep.
of it, right?
Hmm.
I'm an ingredient household, right? And I think this book definitely gives you the ingredients so that way you can start making your 5 course meal, even if it just looks like a hors d'oeuvre or
Yeah.
appetizer.
And I love that analogy too because I think so much. I talk about this, I get on my soapbox in the mental health field about how, the Eurocentric, westernized way that we think about healing and wellness is so much about like deficit and, the
Mm-hmm.
clinical ideologies around taking something that's wrong and just making it okay, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
but soul to self is really like an expansion of how we think about healing and wellness, right? It's like going from, yeah, I got the general recipes to I'm a 5 course meal, right? Because I think that's something that's been lost in our communities too, is like, how do we thrive? How do we flourish? How do we become our best selves? And it's not
Mm-hmm.
just going from I have a mental disorder to now I don't have a mental disorder anymore or I manage it. It's how do I go from I'm okay, but like I deserve to be well. I deserve to be healthy. I deserve to be happy,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think soul to self is like a vessel of that too, of just taking it way further than just being okay. It's like, no, I wanna live my best life too. I deserve that.
No, and I 100% agree with that. And I love the fact that you said it's that Eurocentric ideology and mentality, which is probably part of the reason why I have to get back to reading medical apartheid, right? Um, because as an educator, right, you know this just as well as I do, right? everything that we do on this land, shout out to Cicely Tyson, right, is Eurocentric. And that's something I can scream from the top of the Himalayas, and I promise you nobody will hear me, right? But what people don't recognize is that when we are looking at things through a specific type of lens that can then cloud not only your vision or your judgment, but it can actually throw you off of your trajectory of what it could be, because you have this understanding and this idea of it from this particular perspective. But if that's not, authentic to who you are, if it's not in alignment with who you are or the experiences that you have, then what good is it besides knowing it from somebody else's perspective versus what you actually
Right.
know to be true, right?
Right.
And what I also enjoy about this, and I'm grateful that you tapped me on my shoulder to come and join you in this process, because from that purely educational standpoint, which I keep telling people, education is just this much of psychology. They're sisters. They
Yeah,
know
they're
each
the
other
same
very well,
thing.
right? But what I enjoy about this book as a whole is because it takes not only that psychology and the education and it marries it together. So you're not just getting it strictly from I'm trying to get the self-help with just journaling and stuff like that, or I'm just like, ooh, what are these affirmations and what are these activities that I need to do? No, it's actually making you go back to your English class, or go back to your
Hmm.
social studies class, or go back to your classes that actually made you sit and critically think about what's going on. Not even just like what's going on around you, but what's going on within, how that affects outside, but how outside is also affecting within.
And that's the stuff that, like, talk about critical thinking skills. Going back to your original question, why is this important in this time? We losing critical thinking skills more and more every day with AI.
Oof.
But we ain't gonna go to the depths of that.
I was gonna say, because don't
Uh,
get me started on
Yeah. But
that.
that's another thing. But then also that introspection, like who was really taught that,
Right.
especially when we're thinking about the contextual element of being on this land in the United States of America. Like the reason why colonization is so harmful is because it takes things and puts them in this like very rigid, limited perspective and says, this
Mm-hmm.
is the way. And so
Mm-hmm.
anything outside of that is wrong. Anything outside of that is less than. And that's what we've been having to navigate our whole lives and, generations and generations far back, where what we had inside of us, our ancestors that, were stolen and, put on this land as enslaved people, they had an idea and an ideology and a framework about what healing and what happiness and what joy and what spirituality, all of that looked like. And then they came up to this land and it got stripped away from them. And
Mm-hmm.
so any attempt to try to reclaim that has been deemed, vicious or harmful or threatening, whatever the, connotation is, whatever name you want to say. And so like this is about reclaiming the ways of the world that we know work for us in our culture, but also it permeates too. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, enslaved people or generations that come from like the Afrocentric ideologies. It spans culture and lifetimes too, because I think that's where that nature piece comes in. It's a shared language and a shared experience that we all have, that we all know. So even merging those worlds, like you said, education, psychology, but also nature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like this three-pronged system of like really understanding health from all of those different worlds and combining them in a way where it's like, oh yeah, like this obviously makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
because we see it in our natural environment all the time.
I love that. I love that. And before we move on to the next thing, I want to say, to kind of put a pin, not put a pin, but kind of in that point, is that I think about our ancestors, right? And how they had to make do with what they got, which is how we got soul food, which is how we got the church in the way it looks like right now. It's
Mhm.
how we have the music that we have
Yes.
right now. It's how we have a
Oh,
number of the
yeah.
things, clothes, hair, all of those things, right? And they had to make do, right? The difference between us and them to some degree, depending on how you look at it, ain't too much, except we have the knowledge. They have the wisdom, we have the knowledge, and we have the action to take in order to not only supplement and scaffold what it is that they have, but to also free ourselves and to free our generations, to free our
Yeah.
lineage and things like that, so that we can move forward individually, collectively, as a community, as a society. Because as quiet as it's kept, and what white people will understand, what Europeans will have to understand at some point in time, is that the culture doesn't move forward unless that most marginalized person gets to move forward, right? Malcolm X told you that, right? Until the black woman gets her freedom, ain't nobody free, right? Which, of
Mhm.
course, now because of intersectionality, we've had to
Right.
add
Now
layers to
trans.
that, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to add in
Yeah.
those that are trans, you got to add in those people who are differently abled, you got to add
Mhm.
in a number of layers of things, right? Right. But again, what I love is that, especially with the time that we're in right now, this is an opportunity for us to take that and not even just zhuzh it up, but not even zhuzh it up or redo, but to reestablish who we are as a people, if
Right.
that makes sense. So as we start to land this airplane, as one of my professors used to say back in the day, walk us through the book, right? What is it? Give us, very, very short synopsis, right? What does the book give? Should people expect when they go to do the work that
Yeah.
is aligned and outlined in Soil itself?
Yeah. One of the group members literally said, "This is a work book." Okay. So
Because you will do the
you
work.
will do the work. It's a requirement. So, you know, soil to self is taking you from a journey basically from seed all the way to garden,
Hmm.
as a metaphor. So seed is you. So it's about self-discovery, starting off. And then, when you put a seed in soil, the first thing to grow is the roots, right? And
Hmm.
talking about how where you come from and then how that manifests into the growth, right? And where you come from can really influence who you are in present day, and who you are is that bloom, that
Hmm.
authenticity, and really kind of reclaiming. It walks you through this journey of like examining your roots, and it's kind of like this self challenging of like, what do I want to keep? Because a lot of people, when they think about their histories and their roots, it's not all good, right? We don't have those moments where it's like, I want to keep everything from my history. It's like some of this stuff was toxic and harmful, but some of it was very empowering, and all of it contributes to who I am. And so, what do I want to really cultivate, and what are the things that I need to prune, right? What are
Hmm.
the things that I want to cut off? And then going into your soil, talking about the environments, either internal or external, that you surround yourself with, and is that conducive to your growth? And then it goes into the growth, which growth is in itself, an aspect of our journeys that we don't really like to highlight or lean into as much. Um, it's uncomfortable, right?
Hmm.
And what helps facilitate that growth, and what helps us hold us ourselves and others accountable in that growth. Then, like I said, you get into the bloom. Bloom is authenticity. No bloom is the same. What we see is so different. We're in of one. So really honoring that. And then it gets into the garden, and then garden is about, you don't just have this one individual bloom. That's not what this life's work is about. It's about how do you pay it forward? How do you create a legacy where it's not just about the things that you've learned, but you're pouring now all of that wisdom and knowledge into the soil, and that soil is an ecosystem for communities to be able to engage in this healing practice. So it's a lot of reflective prompts in there that are going to really get you thinking. I always tell people, like, don't rush through this. If you rush through it, you're not going to get what you need to out of it. This is stuff where some of the participants was like, first question, I was on that question for weeks because it was like, what? I ain't even never thought about that ever before in my life. So the prompts are really, they evoke a lot of emotion and introspection. But then you have these really beautiful moments, and shout out to Charles for this. There's psychoeducation in there too, right? Of like, it's not just asking you about yourself, but it's also giving you information about this, giving you names to what that experience could be like. But then we have these mindfulness moments in there as well, where it's giving you information about meditation, box breathing, mindful walking, mindful eat, like all these different skills. So it's like skill development as well, of like, okay, we know we kind of dysregulated you when we asked you about this one particular thing, but look, here's a mindfulness exercise that you could use to kind of like regulate yourself. And then there are exercises too to kind of deepen the work. So like the I am from poem is like very impactful. There's goal setting. So it's like really it's a deep introspective practice, but then it's also like skill development of like we're not gonna walk you through gaining the information because sometimes it's like, okay, I've done the reflection, I know better, but like what do I do with this? And
Mhm.
so it's like both finding out about yourself, but then also gaining skills of like, now what do I do? And we have activities that actually walk you through that. And then there are resources in there as well for podcasts and books. And, it's just all around kind of this really, it's a guide, I would say, at the end of the day, using the metaphor of flowers and gardens and growth as a guide to your own kind of like journey to who you are and finding that out and working with that and living whatever life that you feel like you want to live once you have that knowledge, right? It's that quote of like, once you know better, you do better.
Mhm.
And a lot of times self-awareness is key. That's what we are operating in the world in this kind of like lack of self-awareness or lack of intimate relationships with ourselves. So of course we're not gonna feel aligned. Of course, we're not gonna feel like we are well, right? Because we don't even know who we are. So sort of stuff like really unboxes that for other people to really understand who they are. And then what do you do with that now that you know who you are? Or you got a little bit more knowledge, I would say, about who you
Mhm.
are.
I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you for that very in-depth. I want to buy the book now myself, you know? Um, and it's something that triggered a thought when you were saying, one, this is a workbook. You have to do the work, right? But it was also something that you said is something that you can't speed through. It's something that every teacher has said before. You've heard a teacher say that if you get done early, go
Right.
back and check your work.
Right.
Because just because you finished, that don't mean you done, right? And this is one of those things, we're talking about intentions, right? In writing the different pieces of this book and developing the skeleton and stuff like that of this book, right? One of the things that I was intentional about was making sure that you had to sit with what was going on, right?
Hmm.
Because in order for us to get past something, you have to first acknowledge that it's a thing to begin with. We gotta
Right.
just be on top of it. You gotta be aware that it's a thing. You gotta acknowledge that it's a thing, and then you go from there, right? And so, if you do find yourself speeding through this book,
You're not sitting with it. You ain't learning
you ain't
nothing.
sat with it. It ain't did what it needed to do. Or as Ayala Benzet said, you ain't got to the root of it yet, right?
Hmm.
And a lot of times that a lot of people using, like bamboo or like mint as an example, right? Everybody know you plant bamboo or mint, you got that for the foreseeable future. It's never going anywhere. I'm so sorry, love, right? With anything, right? Or think of anything medical or whatever. If you don't get to the root of the thing, if you don't get to the root of the infection, you don't get to the root of the plant, you don't get to the root cause of the issue,
It's
it's
gonna come
gonna
back.
come back.
Hmm.
It will come back each and every single time until you actually sit and deal with it. And I love that this is the culmination of all of those things,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely.
So, with that being the case, to land officially pull this plane into the gate and for us to debark and get off, right? Number one, tell the people where they can get the book at. Number two, what are some insights or some things that you hope that the people get out of that you may not have named here in this time so far?
Yeah. So go to soiltoself.com. That's our landing page. You can buy the book directly from there and just engage. So got a lot of cool things that are like I guess branching off of this workbook. So the thing about this book is that because we are doing this pilot group and we have people who are going through the workbook themselves, but then also going through these tenets in community, like what we found is that you really do need a community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a microcosm of just, how we need to heal in general. We need our people. We don't need to heal in isolation. While I think that and it has been impactful in itself, find ways to engage, like share this, do this workbook with your family, with your partner, like do it together as a practice so you can have an accountability partner, but also you don't feel like you're going through this alone because it is so evocative, like the tendency is gonna be for you to put this thing down and be like, look, this too much. I can't deal with this right now. So you need
Mhm.
people to be like, no, go back, keep going, right? So that's one important aspect of it. So we're creating like a virtual community called The Garden. And it's gonna be we're gonna have prompts and just like ways to engage with people who are going through the book at the same time or have gone through the book and just engaging in a way where we can develop our own community. And then we're gonna be doing these cohorts as well, where in person and virtually we would have like the 8 week group where you can go through Soul to Self with a facilitator and doing the work in that way. But another thing that I think is really important is just the process is way more important than the content, right? And I cannot emphasize that enough. Like, take a step back and pay attention to how you're even interacting with this because it is going to give you a lot of information about how you're interacting with the world and yourself in general. So it's less about what you write down on these prompts and so much more about like, yeah, did you do the first prompt and then you put it down and you ain't deal with it for 2 weeks? That's probably gonna give you some information about how you deal with triggering things in your life. You're probably super avoidant. Are you the person that's anxiously going through it and, trying to finish it faster than everybody else? That's probably giving you information about how you interact with the world, right? You don't pay attention, you're not present. So, process and the experience of it, I think, is going to give you so much more information than if you just try to do the content in itself. So, that's the things that I want people to know. Soiltoself.com, and then, do it with others. Don't try to do this work alone. You can, but I think it's going to be an added bonus if you either join a community or you encourage other people in your circle to do this work with you so that you don't feel like like don't let yourself down easy and avoid it. Have somebody there that's in this process with you, and I think you're gonna find so much utility and benefit from it.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for coming through and
Thank
telling the
you.
people
Thank you for
about,
your work on this.
yes,
This will not be, I have to hype you up because this will not be in this tangible form without Charles. And I have to laugh too because you talking about at the beginning, like I carry everything with grace. You seen me in my messy moments where it's like we was working on something, then I drop off the face of the earth and you ain't heard from me for weeks and months. And you just like, well, we did. I helped. Like, I don't know.
and with that, and I'll say this quickly, is that I'm one of those people where, like you said, if it was aligned and it was timed for it to happen, it's going to happen regardless of what happens, right? And so as long as I'm on the ride of the journey, whatever happens, happens because life's, right? And we have no choice but to move with the ebbs and flows, how the waves move in and out on the beach or whatever. And even with that, I'm glad and grateful again that I was tapped on the shoulder to do this because at least for me, it gave me an opportunity to kind of heal some things within for myself to see how much my work it actually does benefit and has an impact on other people. So
And you won't
I'm
even know. You won't even know the impact. Like,
I, I can only imagine, but that's not even doing it for me right now, but we can get into that later. Look, me and you can have that one off later at some point in time. But I want to say thank you again for tapping me to help create this. Again, soiltocself.com, y'all. Go get you a book. Let us know what it does for you, what it gives for you, all of those different things. And hopefully we'll see you in one of these guided facilitations or you come see us so we can sign the book or whatever, I got a feeling they gonna folks just gonna see us in like Atlanta airport, be like, oh,
soul to
look,
self.
that's Gene and them. But
I would hope.
right. I don't know. I'm not Beyonce, so I don't know. I don't know how that
Right.
works, right? But with that being said, y'all, that's been another episode of Introspective Thoughts. Click the links down below to find the things. Follow us on the various socials that'll be down there as well too, so that way you can contact us, talk to us, get to know us, all that great stuff. And with that being said, y'all be great. I holla.
Amen.